As an Elden Ring lore and Xenoblade analysis channel, this video was recommended to me by my friend. He told me this is right up my alley, and as a long-form video essay channel, I don't do reaction videos or any sort of off-the-cuff commentary for that matter, but after seeing the first few minutes of this video, I was very intrigued to hear the rest. The content creator is SparksOpus, and this video is I Felt Lied to About From Software, my first experience with Elden Ring review. I will leave the video link in the pinned comment below for you to give him some love, and I will add my commentary pausing often. So, without further ado, let's get to it.
Hello folks, my name is SparksOpus. I welcome you. I've been playing video games for as long as I can remember, and I played a lot of them, though Nintendo games had the biggest influence in my life, and I always went for the Nintendo console, even during the Wii U days. I like my Wii U. The Legend of Zelda was always my favorite series for multiple reasons, and I thought nothing would change that. But then I tried this little rather niche game called Xenoblade Chronicles, a series that I never thought I would enjoy as much as I did, and I was so surprised and caught off guard that I started doing YouTube videos because of it.
Although I'm not as gung-ho about Nintendo these days, it's interesting that I'm mostly in the same boat. On the 3DS and V era, I loved my Ocarina of Time 3D and Skyward Sword. My Xenoblade passion was kindled by Chugakaru's Let's Play, who I believe has introduced thousands of people to this amazing JRPG series. I'm still grateful to him to this day.
And I started going after more niche games, trying out games I thought I would never like, and wouldn't you know it, there's a lot of hidden gems out there. Who knew? But SparksOpus, Elden Ring is not exactly a hidden gem. And actually, why a review video? There's already a billion of them out there anyways. Yes, but there's something I would like to try with this channel. Convince other people to try out more games. Plus, there's also another reason for this video. When people talk to me about From Software games, doesn't even matter if it's Dark Souls, Elden Ring, or even Bloodborne, all they told me is that those games are brutal and hard and impossible to beat.
Now, as a challenge runner myself, I know that the community can be a little intimidating for newcomers. In general, is Elden Ring a hard game? Well, depends entirely on your playing style and build. I'm more of a moveset, aggression, and precision guy, meaning I like to analyze the pattern and basically exploit every single weakness, as can be observed in my Rilana play in Shadow of the Erdtree. But the point is that don't be intimidated, because you can make Elden Ring as hard or as easy as you like. All players with varied skill levels can enjoy it. There is no right or wrong way to play.
And yes, you fight bosses over bosses in a very edgy setting with overly dramatic music. And something that I can already hear from other people saying, "Do you have any idea how little that narrows it down?" Why yes, of course. That's why I feel lied to. People also unironically think that Xenoblade is just about women with large chests.
You can say that again. That's one of the things I'm kind of sad about, because Xenoblade games are so rich, unique, and high quality that you don't have the luxury to ignore in my eyes. You have to play them. They are currently unsurpassed in the modern JRPG space, and I feel like people have this prejudice against anime style because of many other JRPGs not being good, point blank. For every Persona 5, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and Bravely Default, you got your average Dragon Quest and Rune Factories, which are still alright, but definitely not must-play material, at least in my eyes.
Ladies and gentlemen, in an age where the internet and random people online influence everything nowadays in some way, there is something that I tell people quite often. And in this scenario, especially related to video games. Make your own damn opinion. For the love of God, man. You have no idea how many similarities Monolith Soft and From Software have. Even outside their games. Not just the fact that pretty much most of the voice actors are shared between Elden Ring and Xenoblade 3. No, you guys will never get Bloodborne, and we will never get Xenoblade Cross.
I definitely agree that Xenoblade and Elden Ring has a lot in common. I analyzed both of them on this channel for a reason. They both have exceptional world building and lore. Also, I think we'll definitely get a Xenoblade export in 2025 as the leaks suggest. This is not Sony we're talking about. Nintendo actually likes making money.
I will come back to Xenoblade here and there, and you know why? Because for me, and many others who actually played the series, this is unironically the pinnacle of what a role-playing game should be. A unbelievably imaginative world, with a story and lore that actually takes itself serious, with seemingly two masterminds being behind them, with preferences for certain types of things. I'm not judging, I respect that. An absolutely fantastic soundtrack and addicting gameplay. Secret, optional areas, optional bosses, characters that feel real, a world that is telling you a story, plot twists, mysteries that are actually well crafted. And so far, there was only one series that had all of that, and made me play through the first game in a single week. Yes, I know, don't ask. And the newest addition to that S tier list of mine, which also could be considered a developer tier list, is Elden Ring, aka From Software.
It is actually rare for someone to love both Xenoblade and Elden Ring, as the former is pretty niche. But you have summed it up beautifully here. I actually tried to do something similar in my Shadow of the Erdtree and Future Redeemed DLC analysis.
Right, let's get into it. Do the intro thingy, it took me long enough. So what piqued my curiosity in the first place? It is rather easy actually. In 2023, Future Redeemed released. Ending of the Xenoblade trilogy, absolute cinema, peak fiction, holy smokes. I may sound like a fanboy, and I absolutely am. What else am I supposed to say? One of the best storylines I've ever experienced in overall media.
Future Redeemed is the best DLC I have ever experienced in my life. Rarely can a DLC feel so integral to the experience that you feel like you would miss out on the narrative if you don't play it. Because usually, if you look at the general gaming space, DLCs are add-ons that you can live without. You don't need them, but not Future Redeemed. It completely recontextualized Mobius' place in the narrative, and in my eyes, humanized the Eternal Now's ideology. As conservative as Mobius might be, as Tyon and Noah says, they wanted to protect the world too, in a world that they could control.
Then Tears of the Kingdom released, and... Look, I have a video on that. It would take too much of my time anyways to talk about it here. Some Zelda tubers were ranting here and there, also regarding the direction the series is heading, and something that I've heard quite often is that if Breath of the Wild was the next step in what an open world game should be, which it kinda was, Elden Ring would be the next logical step. An evolution, you could say. And Tears of the Kingdom being, well, mediocre in comparison to the Game of the Year winner of 2022. Bandit Games, and I think also Monster Maze, but especially Bandit, folks which videos I really adore, mentioned Elden Ring quite a few times. It doing so many things right and being a better Zelda game than Zelda.
As I talked about in my open world games analysis, I was very disappointed with Tears of the Kingdom. As much as I loved Breath of the Wild, repeating the same formula and the same map design in an empty sky island and bloated depths is not my idea of a strong sequel. Since the Skyward Sword dungeon quality wasn't also present in this one, I actually wonder what Nintendo was even doing for all that development time.
Dear viewers, Elden Ring unironically feels like a mature Zelda game. I get it now. It has also a lot of verticality, a kick-ass soundtrack, Actually, let me split this bad boy into multiple segments. Let's go. The overworld. The only game where I felt this indescribable feeling of you being so small, so insignificant in such a massive world is Xenoblade.
You know, it's interesting because that feeling you describe came to me in Gaur Plains in Xenoblade 1, where I was exploring this massive land with that beautiful song in the background. It was a magical moment that not a lot of games are able to capture. I would say both Skyrim and Fallout New Vegas came close, Breath of the Wild also, and this feeling of wanting to explore, actually being curious about it, was a shortcoming of even Witcher 3, where the world design was flat, and the game carried its intrigue for me purely by the dialogues and narrative. And because of this, I want to point out how rare it is to see a game like Elden Ring, where not only you have top-tier combat, but also an incredibly rich lore and world building in an open world that you actively desire to explore every inch. I mean, this game is in my top 3 favorite games of all time list for a reason.
And I never had this feeling in any other game ever. At least not to that extent. But Elden Ring, oh Elden Ring. I've never seen so much environmental storytelling going on before. Everything has lore, everything. But it's not just that. The foreshadowing, the game telling you, you see this, you can get there, just not yet. So many points of interest, ruins and lost civilizations, and also random events that can happen to you. From traveling loot boxes to more or less invincible NPCs, and you getting seriously bamboozled. It really has it all.
It really does. If you watched my Origins of America and Radagon lore analysis, this is more or less a summary of the entire game, including the DLC, and the sort of depth that resides in this narrative can literally be a TV show or a book series. George R.R. Martin inspired Miyazaki to such a degree that the world building is stronger than ever in this whole series. And I, personally, in this video, tried to capture that magic and richness, the drama, the human aspect of Elden Ring that I frankly do not see many people talk about, which is kind of odd to me. In fact, one of my close friends actually doesn't really like Elden Ring and believes that the lore is disappointing and boring. And I'm like, I don't think you're watching my videos, bro. Elden Ring's lore is anything but boring.
Also, I was talking about Zelda a bit, right? Tears of the Kingdom didn't scratch my, I guess, Zelda itch. But would you believe that Elden Ring did? You have those enormous, massive dungeon-like castles in every area with, dear lord, I revisited Stormvale Castle like 10 times because there was always something that I missed. It is so brilliantly crafted. How do you even put so much stuff in this one area? So many secret passages and hidden paths, and exploration also feels so rewarding. You get so much cool stuff, I don't even know where to start.
My favorite dungeon is by far Lindell, considering how complex and multi-layered it was. And do you remember the sewers that led to Moog and the Three Fingers? It was like this dungeon inside a dungeon. And this sort of dungeon design was what I wanted to see in Tears of the Kingdom. My second favorite is probably the Shadow Keep or the Erdtree. And obviously in the latter, my waifu Melania resides. And just like Lindell, this was a top tier level design. My only criticism was to have one more proper legacy dungeon in Caelid. Radagon's Festival, although a cool idea, wasn't sufficient. There should be more level design and enemies, and then we should have capped it off with the Radagon's Festival. Other than that, Elden Ring is a testament to how high quality dungeons can be made in an open world.
You also have those catacombs, which are like the Zelda shrines. And once again, holy smokes, this game is an action-adventure, 3D platformer horror game RPG with romance elements. And it is most of the time a pure cinematic experience, even during regular gameplay. I was talking about verticality. This, I technically don't even need to talk about it. You see the footage right here, and I could show off so much more. But man, playing this game without having any clue is one hell of an experience.
And that's why I always say the first experience is so important and magical. Elden Ring, in my eyes, is not a game where repeat playthroughs would be as impactful. You can still enjoy the game, do different builds, but not knowing what you're gonna see in this world is core to the fabric of the experience. That's why I always say don't wing your blind experience. That experience is so important. If the game got too easy, and let's say you're bored, figure out a way to balance it again. If the game is too hard and you're not enjoying it, again, balance it and look up some guides. The first experience of Elden Ring is to savor and maximize your enjoyment, because you will never get that again.
It never gets tiresome to explore the lands between, because also of how diverse the environment is. And the world contains so many hidden secrets, buildings, ruins, puzzles and riddles for various armaments like swords, shields, armor pieces, magical staffs, those Doctor Strange-like sling ring weapons, then items, ashes, upgrade materials, random key items, and there is so much more. It is ridiculous. Honestly, I felt multiple times during the game that I've seen it all at this point, but it just continued with new stuff. And at a certain point, some people may remember it from the streams, I put my controller away and was just quite overwhelmed. I couldn't take it anymore. I wasn't able to continue. I was so fascinated by the imagination that went into this game. Miyazaki, man. Like, damn, dude.
In my opinion, the enemy variety in Elden Ring is bar none the pinnacle of open world gaming right now. Sure, there is still some repetition, especially in the late game, but compared to other open worlds, yeah, there is no contest. Have you played Dragon's Dogma 2? Although I like the game, it has literally 5 enemies in the entire game. A similar thing can be said for Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Even The Witcher 3, there is a problem with enemy variety in open world games. And just looking at, for instance, Future Redeemed, a Xenoblade DLC, that game has more enemy variety than majority of open world games. And the reason why it matters so much is not just gameplay reasons. This also heavily aids the world building and lore. A vast living and breathing world must be inhabited by varied enemies for it to be believable. That's why I love Elden Ring and Xenoblade so much, because they value that attention to detail. They value that variety. They value the world building and lore that so many games out there just do not care.
I kinda want to revisit their older titles now. I'm not just talking about Dark Souls. Armored Core looks quite nice, gotta say. But let us jump to the next point, combat. Look, I will say it. Tears of the Kingdom seems like a complete joke in comparison.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest here. Zelda's combat is extremely bare bones. Like, there's not even contest. Elden Ring's combat is light years ahead of Zelda. And we all kind of gave Nintendo some slack in Breath of the Wild because it was a completely new, novel, and creative experience. In that game, the combat got stale for me like 60% in, and I started skipping all the optional encounters. But because Tears of the Kingdom does nothing to improve on it, the same thing happened in Tears much earlier, like 20% in. I was already bored because I was fighting the same enemies from Breath of the Wild, and the mechanics are mostly the same, which was not even that good to begin with. If you look at Miyazaki's boss complexity and variety, that is also unsurpassed in the industry. So although none of us expect Nintendo to come close to From Software, at least they can try to take some notes and improve on a sequel. While I'm looking at Tears of the Kingdom, I'm still not seeing where exactly those 67 years of development time went. Optimizing, I guess.
Elden Ring has 311 unique weapons, base game. Shadow of the Erdtree has an additional 103, and 30 different types of them, once again, base game. Swords, katanas, greatswords, colossal swords, hammers, lances, whips, daggers, twin blades, axes, your own fists. Don't forget the bows and crossbows. And you have the left and right side of your shoulder buttons on your controller for each weapon you're holding. You can do some wild combos. You can hold no matter what weapon with 2 hands for more bonking power. You have so-called Ashes of War, which are like special moves. All weapons can have them. They can reach from a rather simple power-up to you becoming a straight-up anime protagonist. I was running around the world with a strength and faith build, have the power of God and anime on my side, slaughtering every single enemy on my way, doing incantations and granting myself some crazy abilities. The combat in this game is so much fun.
The weapon variety is very important. It is something Dragon's Dogma 2 is also doing better than most other games. Although still not on Elden Ring's level, the heavy weapons feel different than swords. And the same applies to Mage, Archer, and Thief. There is a very good variety and mechanical richness on the player's side. For instance, almost all open worlds are weak on weapon and mechanical variety for the player character. Skyrim, Witcher 3, the Assassin's Creed Valhalla, they all feel the same, and whatever variety is there feels, to me, surface level. While in Elden Ring, and to a degree with Dragon's Dogma 2, it feels like I'm playing a different game with each genre of weapons. In Elden Ring, if you ask what is my favorite weapon, I would personally tell you that colossal weapons is the way to go. I love how aggressive you can be with roll R1s, dropping these satisfying charged R2s along with jump attacks. I'm personally really glad the posture break system was added in Elden Ring, similar to Sekiro. Combined with Morgott and Relana's varied moveset, it is no wonder this is the best action RPG ever made, at least for me. See, it is not just strong in terms of the player's mechanical variety, but also enemy perspective as well. The bosses are absolutely incredible, and it's a game oozing with mechanical depth and variety through and through.
Challenging, but fun. I died to the tutorial boss, which is a simple soldier, multiple times. Yes. Unironically though, I was very scared to play this game on stream. After picking Wretch as my starting class, please don't do the same mistake as me. The start was very rough. It was also a bit discouraging, especially after some people saying that it wasn't fun watching that. Which, hey, maybe you're right, but this comment right here, you have no idea how much it motivated me to continue. And I went from dying to random rats to killing the final boss without any ashes in what, 2 hours? And I am genuinely proud on how I continued to learn and get better until I finally were able to beat hard bosses in not so much time.
And you got better as a player, right? Gaining confidence in your abilities in the general sense. Even if the bosses are aggressive and varied, your confidence in taking on the challenge by analyzing your edge against them, the patterns, the moveset. All you need is just a process of experimentation, some time, and persistence.
And that's the thing, once again, with why I feel lied to. It sounded like those games are just about going from one boss to another and dying to a lot of unfair BS. But it's not it, like, at all. Talking from myself here, I always knew why I died too. And this is something that you try to prevent the next time. Sounds rather basic in how boss fights usually go, but From Software takes that one level further. You really have to learn their move pattern, get to a point where you can outplay them, or you just summon ashes. You see, the game gives you a lot of options to make the game easier for you. Ashes, incantations, sorceries, armors and amulets, consumables. I mean, hey, you can also summon other players that can one-hit the boss if they wanted to. Overall, some skill is still required, but it is manageable like that. Also, talking about bosses, or I guess enemies in general, this game has some of the coolest boss fights that I have ever fought in my entire life.
I absolutely agree with you there. In Shadow of the Erdtree, a DLC mind you, the boss count is literally comparable to Demon Souls, a fully fledged game. And the moveset variety and enjoyment is completely off the charts for me. From Mesmer and Relana, for the base game we got Margit, Morgoth, Melania, Malekith, Mohg, Radon, you name it. You can check out my boss tier list if you want to see where I rank them. And this game has it all because both in terms of spectacle fights like Rykard and Bale, along with mechanical depth with fights like Melania and Relana, Mesmer, From Software pushed the envelope on bosses to such a degree that other companies like Santa Monica, as evidenced by God of War Ragnarok, are definitely trying, but I can tell you that they're going to have a tough time keeping up. For instance, I'm currently playing Black Myth Wukong, where the boss variety is very good, but still not on the From Software quality in terms of the moveset and the rhythm. It's a fun game regardless, you should check it out. It's a bit of a recent example on how boss fights in action games can be done competently in an industry where repetition is the norm and standards are frankly very low.
Base game has 16 main bosses, and overall 238 bosses, including mini bosses and everything that comes close. And the enemy variety is also incredible. Every area has different kinds of regular enemies, which keeps the game constantly fresh and makes you wonder, what on earth is that? Is that what I think it is? Then you kill a monster and a bigger monster spawns out of it. I swear, this game is closer to being a horror game than an RPG, but oh well. Going back to the bosses though, some of those bosses are playing with you. I'm not kidding, see, usually if a boss starts to raise their sword, you usually know when the attack will happen. But in Elden Ring, dude, they will raise the sword and run in your direction. Oh, but they won't attack. He is holding that same stance for like 10 seconds. And I swear to God, I have rolled a billion times at this point and I'm already out of stamina. My stamina meter was already emptied before he even did anything. And then he attacked. The boss is jumping into the air, is about to smash on the ground, but then he starts to levitate for like 2 seconds until he actually strikes. The bosses in this game play around with your fear of being hit.
And those delayed attacks, unlike what some people like to argue, is what adds variety to the rhythm and the flow. One attack is slightly delayed, the next one much more so, then there's a small gap and an immediate attack without any delays. See, that's what makes the rhythm interesting. The bosses in Elden Ring combine different timings to make sure that you understand what you're doing and are not just trying to brute force it by spamming the dodge roll button. I'm personally really glad that they're finally integrated properly into the fabric of the experience with Elden Ring's combat.
It does it so well. I sometimes started laughing like a maniac because of how ridiculous it was, but it makes it for such a special experience. Something that I have never really seen before. Everything has phases. Even mini-bosses have phases. Regular enemies can feel like entire bosses. Regular enemies can do the same thing to you that you can do to them. Like, for example, breaking their stance and stabbing them. You don't want that to happen to you. Which, once again, provides for an experience that I have never seen anywhere else before. The characters are interesting and make you feel invested. Which reminds me once again of a certain game, where there's even smaller characters that you wouldn't even pay attention too much to, but at a certain point you realize how much you actually cared.
Man, in Xenoblade 2, Amalthus's character arc was so good, in my opinion, as after seeing the cruelty of humanity holding the baby in his hands, Amalthus was asking the architect if this is the world you intended, and that was a very relatable backstory for why he does what he does in the game, explaining why Malos was filled with so much hatred and disdain for humanity.
Relations between characters, mysteries around them, hey, maybe even characters that you never meet, but are still relevant for the story. Also, just like in Xenoblade Cross, side quests with you having multiple options and you deciding the fate of some NPCs, sometimes even unknowingly. I remember one moment in particular after one hell of a boss fight where I met the end of a quest line and had a decision to make. And it crushed me, man. I was unironically sad. Are there some massive character arcs with some crazy character development going on? Not exactly. But even then, they felt well thought through and enjoyable to interact with. And I think it was nice. I mentioned lore here and there. The lore and universe is very interesting and wants me to know more. I'm not kidding, finding a random dagger on the floor and it tells you the history of an entire empire. Pick up a random flower and you get the info of the beginning of the universe. A slight exaggeration, but you get the point.
That is the beauty of lore hunting, to combine the puzzle pieces in a way that explains all of those item descriptions and dialogues. In my opinion, a good lore hunter would make sure to not ignore repeated insinuations in the dialogues, and especially not cherry-pick what is convenient for their theories. You need to get the theory to fit with the facts, not try to make the facts fit with your theories. And as you said, a flower can give you an important information about the politics of the world or a character motivation. I mean, all of us looked at Miquella and Trina's lilies and concluded on a strong connection between these beings. And obviously Trina was Miquella's other self, just like Radagon was for Marika. That's precisely the sort of beauty and depth, the richness of Elden Ring's lore that modern gaming kinda lacks.
Fact is, you don't even have to care about the story in the game. The game as it is already quite fantastic. But it gives also those people something that actually care about the story and lore, something to nibble on, you know? The fact that George R.R. Martin worked together with Miyazaki on the world and universe of Elden Ring is so great. That is so cool, and it shows. It works. You can have brilliant gameplay, rewarding exploration, going pretty much anywhere you want with a more linear story and incredibly deep lore, which makes this game absolutely fantastic. An absolute masterpiece that deserves the Game of the Year win, and also all of those 10 out of 10s. This game is one of the greatest games I have ever played in my entire life.
I completely agree with you there. For me, art is about feeling stuff, and Elden Ring made me feel stuff in spades, from excitement to curiosity to rage to satisfaction. It had it all. I still remember when this game was first introduced, I was scared it was going to be a copy-paste of Breath of the Wild and not take any risks as its own experience. 2-3 hours in, I realized how wrong I was and how Miyazaki cooked an absolute masterpiece here.
Period. The music is also neat. I haven't really talked about it, but the music is also fantastic. I don't think I can add more to that. If anything, you should experience the music for yourself. It is some tasty stuff. Xenoblade Chronicles has expansions that rivals full game releases for only half the price. And I've never seen so much packed into a DLC before by anyone else, giving it such an incredible value. And there comes Shadow of the Erdtree, and giving you pretty much Elden Ring 2.
Okay, now I would not go that far. Shadow of the Erdtree is amazing, but it's no Elden Ring 2. The base game is still far superior in my eyes, but in terms of what a DLC can do, I think this was peak. I always love when the DLCs introduce what is called recontextualization. Marika's motivations for shattering the Elden Ring was very vague before. We didn't understand how Golden Order was birthed. What was Marika thinking when she removed the Rune of Death? Well, this DLC kinda gave us the answer. The shamans were bastardized by the Horn Scent with the jar rituals in Ballarat jail. The pain Marika felt precipitated a world without death, hoping that she can deny this aspect of reality and veil it inside her shadow so that no one would feel the suffering her shaman people felt with Horn Scent's inhumane practices. Now, with this context in mind, we could all sympathize with Marika and realize why she was imprisoning the omens and the crucible touched below the sewers. What was once regarded to be a sign of divinity was now a curse indeed.
I applaud those developers, man, on both sides. Those people are the reason I still have some faith in this industry. It doesn't get much better than that, really. One of the most cinematic boss fights I have ever seen, mad fun to play against too, with a scenery. This entire game is so beautiful. The art direction and stylistic choices are genuinely incredible. I don't know how many times I had to hold on for a moment and just take it all in. I am happy that I played this game. I am happy. I 100%ed it too, by the way. All on stream. I had a very good time with it. Except when... Marika, have mercy upon my soul.
Here we go. Let's see what the criticisms are.
Who thought it would be a good idea to not have any menu or anything close to a quest log where I can look up my quests? Or the quests that I have activated, or where I am supposed to go. My lord, some of them are like, talk to this NPC who just tells you that he likes feet or something, then you gotta travel to this location on the other side of the map, pose with some random emote, talk to another completely unrelated NPC who apparently also likes feet, and then go to one of the big castles, kill both of them, loot for a key that only spawns when you hit them both at the same time, that leads you to a new area the size of, I don't know, the Great Plateau from Breath of the Wild. It feels like I'm playing a JRPG from the early SNES and PlayStation 1 times.
I agree here. It's a bit too cryptic and hard to follow. Too many NPCs, too many vague insinuations, not knowing what to do. Unless you look up a guide, which I hate doing in a blind playthrough, you will miss a lot of stuff. Miyazaki can at least help us out with a log where we can keep track of the names of the NPCs or our dialogues, what we talked about, to remember 10 hours later when it actually becomes relevant.
Some of those quests, how are you supposed to know that? No indication, no nothing. If it weren't for the few people helping me out in chat, I would have missed so much. You will miss out on so much content. If you don't have a guide or something close to that by your hand, or your fingers, I think it is very unfortunate. This game also has fake walls, by the way, and they only disappear if you hit them, or roll against them. Neat, right? Also, talking about characters, I usually have forgotten their names because there is no name tag about the speech bubble. Why? Some of you people only tell me your name like 30 hours in. People ask me, did you talk to this person? And I have no clue who that person is. You know where the same issue occurred? The map. The map is trash, dude. I'm so sorry.
Well, I personally like the map because you get it by fragments, which facilitates a sense of progress and curiosity, while not showing every single little point of interest like Assassin's Creed games. It's a nice middle ground where it piques curiosity, but also informs you about where to go next.
The map from Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have spoiled me. Heck, even Future Redeemed goes one step further for completionists, listing everything you have collected or still need to collect. And all those bosses, super bosses and such that you still have to beat.
But I would say Future Redeemed and Elden Ring's maps are designed for different purposes. This one is for completionists, while Elden Ring wants to maintain the mystery and the unknown as an, frankly, exploration-focused game, which is fair in my eyes. It's actually better that you do not show too much, so that your imagination can go a bit wild, so that the sense of wanting to explore is maintained. I wouldn't say that Future Redeemed is doing a bad thing, but certainly I was more interested to explore in Elden Ring compared to Future Redeemed.
There's none of that here. You can kill NPCs. Enemies can kill NPCs. There was one quest line that I couldn't finish because a soldier followed me onto the roof. Very silently, I didn't notice him. And while I was talking to him, he stabbed me and him both. And he was falling to his demise. Sick. There's also a YouTube short on that, by the way, if you're interested. Talking about fall damage, you either die or do not die. Like, honestly, there is no in between. There were times where it got absolutely ridiculous, touching the ground from 2 meters and being reduced to ashes. You can survive, but this is one of the rarest things that you can experience in this game. Dying is usually the first option for you. Destined death. Let's be real though. The whole jump and run sections are jank incarnate. Is that even a real thing in English? But I guess you'll see it for yourself if you start playing this game. The game sometimes won't let me do my close-up finishers too. You know, those staggering and then doing the crit thing. Sometimes also the animations make either you or the enemies invincible.
By that, you mean stuff like maybe low profiling certain attacks after jump R2s, which are actually by design. Due to reduced height, you get invincibility frames for the character, which seems like the enemy should have hit you but couldn't. That's why.
I had my love-hate relationship with it, but I sometimes denied me my... Wait a moment, I think I have to sneeze. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, but this sometimes denied me my W. And the last thing, which... This game has some weird placements of cutscenes. If you know, you know. You could face a long-forgotten king with crazy lore and anything, and he just spawns in. Or you do something as simple as climbing a ladder, and you got the most dramatic montage of you climbing the ladder. I just thought it was weird. I also had a few words on the ending of the DLC, but that would be spoiler territory. If you're interested, I talked about it in the VOD, the live stream that is still findable on the channel. But, ladies and gentlemen, all in all, it doesn't change the fact that this game is a masterpiece. I'm happy to say that I now finally understand why this game is so beloved, and that all those 10 out of 10s and all that praise was absolutely justified. And once again, it just goes to show that you should make your own experience first instead of listening to others. It worked for Xenoblade and now also for me with Elden Ring.
and I am very happy that I made these experiences. How was your experience with the game? Were you also concerned? Please let me know. Alright folks, I hope this video was entertaining. Like, sub, you know how things go. All other interesting links are down below, and I will see you all once again very soon. Have a good one, my friend. Goodbye.
Man, I gotta tell you, all in all, this was a phenomenal video. SparksOpus, fantastic work. I'm gonna give the video a like, and the link is in the description, so please give him some love if you liked it as well. Go to his channel, check out his videos. I agreed with so many things that it is rare to find people who are into both Elden Ring and Xenoblade and actually desires to understand both of these games at depth. And I'm glad I found someone else who's speaking the same language as me. If you guys enjoyed this reaction, give it a like, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to check out my Elden Ring's Origin Timeline video. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.